Okay, let's discuss the state of rugby union. I've made several attempts at this over the last couple of hours. I don't want to rant too much. I just want to state simple facts. There's two areas that I think World Rugby need to fix on a playing standpoint, and that's the scrum and tackle technique. And as someone who used to play as a second row and a back row forward when I was at school before moving to the wing and fullback, yeah, get the scrum halves to feed it down the tunnel and get the hookers to hook the ball and get the rest of the scrum to push straight. It is just simple. Stop wheeling for penalties. Stop boring in. Feed it straight. That's what needs to happen, because at the moment, trying to explain a scrum to a North American who may be new to the game is... I don't know what's going on in there anymore. I don't. I spent 2 years of my life with my head wedged between a hooker and a prop. I knew exactly what was happening in the front row because I could see the ball coming in the tunnel. I could see my hooker and the opposition hooker trying to hook the ball, hook it back, and as soon as we got dominance in that hooking contest, we're driving forward. Or we're being pushed back and we need to get tight and contest the scrum. That's not happening anymore because professional hookers now have never hooked a ball in their life. They never even hooked the ball at school because it's been fed so wonky for so long. And that's a weakness in World Rugby and the referees at the time that have allowed that to happen. Now they're trying to make these mitigating rules where they tell the scrum half that you can put it in here or here. They just need to say, down the tunnel, straight, hookers hook the ball, please. Second rows, number eights, flankers, get tight, drive straight. Simple. The stronger pack will win out. Unless you can hook the ball quick, get it out quick, which is the whole point of a scrum. It all make it an arm wrestle and really both packs driving straight. You're going to get these constant wheels, constant collapses, and a lot of injuries. Tackle technique, I'm more talking about getting the head in the wrong place, and that has happened a lot over the last 20 years. I'm going to use Lee Halfpenny as the example. Head-on tackles, you lead with your dominant shoulder, you wrap your arms. Either he's going to go over that way or you're going to drive him backwards. It's just simple gravity at that point. In regards to head in the wrong place, side-on tackles, get your head by his buttocks. If you can't hit with your dominant shoulder, which in my case would be this one, you're going to have to hit with this one. And again, you get your head behind his arse and you wrap. 9 times out of 10, you're going to chop his legs and he's going to go down. Lee Halfpenny as the example, he would always lead with his dominant shoulder, which I believe was his right, and put his head in front of the player. So the player's running that way, his head's there, and he knocks himself out. Kids see that, they replicate it. This is where World Rugby need to get the head coaches of the test sides and club sides around the table and go, look, your players are hurting themselves. They need to tackle like this. Now, what unfortunately World Rugby are doing, which I think is wrong, is reducing the amount of contact training. Contact training breeds muscle memory. You don't have to go 110 mile an hour, but you can get your technique right. And unfortunately, they're trying to reduce the amount of training hours and contact training hours. Load management. I hate that term. You need to build muscle memory and you need to build technique through repetition. Tackle drills are important. Scrummaging drills are important. And unfortunately, coaches are coaching bad technique with the scrum, and tackles and rucks and mauls, unfortunately, because they're trying to reduce the amount of contact hours, is actually going to reduce the quality of what you actually see with the muscle memory and getting it right with good technique. So I have my views on that. That's my point on that. I used to love training. I used to love it. I used to love training because it actually got you confident to go, right, if I can do this in training, I can do this on the field against opposition in anger, properly and controlled. The 20-minute red card, get rid of it. A red's a red. As someone who has been sent and has been on the receiving end of foul play, I can tell you now, 20-minute red card is a joke. For simple fact, if there's mitigating circumstance and there's a an accidental mistimed high tackle or accidental gets it wrong, either with a dump tackle going above the horizontal, which I hate that ruling. As long as the guy don't end up on his head, it's a perfect tackle for me because it's man and ball and you've stopped the attack stone dead, but that's why rugby scared of lawsuits. When a player has gone in with malicious intent, I can tell you that for a fact. A, body language, and B, his eyes. You know when he's lined someone up from a distance and he's going to smash him in the head, hit him late, hit him high, hit him hard. You know when it's a dirty tackle. You know when it's mistimed. There is a difference. It's body language. It's how the player responds after the hit as well. When he knows he's got it wrong, go, okay, I've got it wrong, and you can see concern. You also know when the player has seen red, has gone in deliberately, high, late, no mitigation, right? That's what the red card is for. That's what the yellow card is for. 20-minute red card is pointless. It's pointless because it's another layer of administration the referee doesn't need. It also reduces the referee's authority. We saw that in the World Cup with the yellow-red card review system. It weakened the on-field officials' authority. It made them question their own decisions. They're constantly questioning their own decisions, and we're now refereeing by replay. Get rid of it. Finances. This is where I think I'm going to get very passionate, because you've got to ask the question over the last 30 years of professionalism where the money has gone. The reason why professionalism comes about is in part because of Rugby League, and in Australia the AFL as well, because they were full-time professional sports that could offer more money. They were luring talent away from rugby union. And Australia panicking, and to a certain extent New Zealand panicking, going, oh, we're going to lose talent to Rugby League because they're offering these big contracts because of the Super League war, and the Super League here in the UK having a big lucrative deal with Sky at the time in real terms. Rugby union was panicking. We're going to lose talent to League. The talent has been lost to League, predominantly in the Southern Hemisphere, at junior level, not at the professional level. So that panic was misplaced. However, they go professional in 95 following the 95 World Cup. Now in Wales, who've got financial problems, economics is why Wales are struggling financially. Simple. South Wales is not the wealthiest area in the world because all the heavy industry is now gone, pretty much. Port Talbot's blast furnace is going to go soon. Jobs are going to be lost. There's a lot of people underemployed, unemployed, on low wages or on benefits. It's simple economics in South Wales. They tried putting a team called the Crusaders, the Celtic Crusaders, in the north. There's no money in the north because it's sheep farming and slate. There's not a lot of money in farming, as we now know. So the game going professional in Wales has been mismanaged anyway, but there's not a lot of money. Now, in regards to clubs going bust because of the ring fencing and the Melbourne Rebels and all that, again, you've got to ask the question why professional sports teams are going busts when in reality it should be a profitable thing. Professional sports should be profitable, right? Mismanagement by team owners and boards, but also poor financial oversight by the unions. Also, spending money in the wrong areas. So in Rugby Australia's case, paying rugby league players to try and win them a World Cup for the last 25 years has not really paid off now, has it? Because they haven't. They continue to rinse and repeat this same cycle of we're going to pay 3 or 4, maybe 5 rugby league players to come over from league to union, big money. England tried it. They got it right once with Jason Robinson. Every other time, Andy Farrell, while he did stay in union, he stayed as a very good coach and he did finish his career as a union player and did quite well. Andy Farrell was decent in union. People forget that. He was at the end of his career, mind, but he was decent in union. He has become a world-class head coach. There is no doubt on that. Sam Burgess was a disaster. England learnt their lesson very, very quickly. Maybe we shouldn't take league players. Let's not do that. It's an expensive failure. It was an embarrassing failure in 2015. Jason Robinson is the outlier. Andy Farrell is a decent example of how it can work. It doesn't win you a World Cup, but it can work because he transitioned very well into a head coach. Sam Burgess was a disaster. It was mismanaged by the RFU. So from the England standpoint, they learnt their lesson. Australia haven't. They have spent the best part of 2.5 decades wasting millions and millions and millions on a handful of rugby league players to try and win them a World Cup, to get back where they were in 1999, and they haven't invested enough in the grassroots. Their TV deal as well for rugby union is piss poor. What has happened is they've lost the Melbourne Rebels as a Super Rugby franchise and they nearly lost the Western Force entirely. They basically threw their hat in the ring for Israel Folau. Now, I've covered the Israel Folau saga to death a couple of years ago, and basically when they told him off the first time, they gave him the contract. 1.8 million Australian dollars. The same amount of money that Western Force needed to stay at a top-level Super Rugby franchise. Now, Western Force are now, again, a Super Rugby franchise, but at that time, they needed that money. That 1.7 million. They gave it all to Israel Folau, plus some extras. A year later, they sack Israel Folau. We covered that. yes, there's the social side of things and religion and progressive politics and all that crap. And Riding Castle was not the right person to lead that organisation at that time because she's a liberal lefty. And it blew up in her face, it blew up in Rugby Australia's face, sponsors pulled out, Israel Folau gets sacked, he takes them to a tribunal, he wins out of an out-of-court settlement that's worth far more than his contract was, and it costs a huge amount in legal fees and create a financial black hole. Now, while I'm not a fan of Israel Folau's stance on certain aspects of certain things, it's called freedom of speech. And unfortunately, Riding Castle, being very left-wing leaning, didn't like that. And partly what didn't help her position is she wasn't Australian, she was a Kiwi, and had never played rugby union in her life. And while she had been a very successful sports administrator in netball, she tried to take netball administration style to a very masculine dominated sport in rugby union. It didn't work. It went horribly wrong. Politics got involved. It cost Rugby Australia a lot of money, a lot of sponsors, and they've never recovered financially. At the same time, Israel Folau notwithstanding, while I'm a massive fan of Wendell Saylor, Lottie Takiri, and Matt Rogers, they paid him a lot of money in 2003 to win a World Cup. They didn't. 2007, Matt Rogers is still part of the Aussie setup. It doesn't happen again. And it hasn't happened for 25 years, yet they keep spending money that could be invested in the grassroots to develop talent and protect talent and actually pay talent to stay rather than lose a lot of under-18s, under-19s to rugby league and AFL. They decide to wait until they've left and then try and lure them back with stupid amounts of money. Suoliti being the latest example of, I think, a waste of money. Not because he's a bad player, he actually played very well in his first couple of tests in the autumn, but they lost him as a teenager. They had panic and they overspent to get him back. The reason why he's come back and the reason why Joey Manu left rugby league to go to Japan to play union is because of a salary cap system that the NRL has. It's the only reason why they're playing union. It's got nothing to do with anything other than money. They can get well compensated for playing rugby union. In New Zealand's case, they're limited by New Zealand's economy and population base, and the fact that the New Zealand Warriors are the one rugby league professional team they have. They sell out every game, they're profitable. Unfortunately, the Super Rugby franchises, they're taking little segments of a rather small country population-wise with a limited economic base, with limited money, and they're trying to share it evenly. They're going to make less money, if any money at all, compared to the Warriors, who've got a whole nation behind them. It's simple mathematics. The fact that now even the Great All Blacks and their union are basically bankrupt tells you something. There is a reason why some All Blacks will never get to 100 caps. They play in the Northern Hemisphere. They go where the money is. And this is what's killing Australia and New Zealand, England and Wales, is you've got to play in your home nation after a certain age or a special dispensation. So the Matt Giteau rule does apply to Australia. The Johnny Wilkinson rule does apply to England to a certain extent, although they haven't enacted it with Owen Farrell for some reason. Don't ask me why. They basically say you've got to play domestically to be eligible for selection. The game cannot afford it. The game is losing money. What we've seen recently with the RFU and the battle with the clubs is clubs below the Premiership, which is now ring-fenced, are saying we're losing money, we're being denied the opportunity of promotion to the Promised Land, which is the Premiership, which means more income, because we've got to have stadium criteria. We've got to have at least a 10,000-seat stadium. Most of the clubs in the Premiership can't even fill their current stadiums. There's empty seats all over the place. Then you look at how much they're charging at Twickenham, how much they're charging at the Principality, and other Six Nations stadiums, and you work out, I'd rather go to the Stadio Olimpico because I can afford it. Where's the money going? Now, Wales' case, we know they just have no economic base. No offence to the Welsh, but South Wales is not the wealthiest area in the world unless you want to work in a call centre for the rest of your life in Swansea or Cardiff. In the service industry, there's just not a lot of money. And then you look how much they're charging at the Principality for a Six Nations game or for an Autumn International, and you're like, well, they should be making money off this, right? Why is it not going to the grassroots to support the grassroots Welsh Premiership? Why is it not going to the four regions evenly? And then you have to ask the question, oh yeah, because they demand that players play in Wales to represent the country. They cannot afford it. They cannot afford the centralised contracts. Players, every time they go to a World Cup, going, we're not sure if we're going to have a club to play for when we return to Wales. That happened in 2019. It happened in 2023. They were like, we're not sure if we're going to have a club to play for when we finish this World Cup. Alan Wynne-Jones very publicly stated that in 2019. He's like, I don't know what's going to happen. I may not have a club to play for. Simple economics. They tried with the Celtic Crusaders. It was a financial disaster, and it's hurt Welsh rugby ever since. Ring fence the Premiership in England was just brain dead. That's why the Jersey Reds no longer exist, because their stadium wasn't up to the 10,000 seater capacity. But don't worry, Saracens can constantly break the salary cap, get relegated for a year, come back, and then we'll ring fence it. That's why players are going to France. They can get paid. That's why players are going over to the US and Canada for Major League Rugby, because they can get paid, because they can get paid as a marquee player. They can earn money. This is where South Africa have got it right. South Africa have said you can play for the Springboks. It doesn't matter where you play your club rugby. They've worked out in the South African Union that the South African rand is not the strongest currency, and the South African economy is not necessarily the best economy. And they've worked out that rugby union is a religion in South Africa. Doesn't matter what community you're from, white, black, mixed race, Asian, it's a religion. It unifies the nation. The nation stops when the Springboks play. It does. It's one of the few unifiers in South Africa is cricket and rugby union. And both the cricket governing body and the rugby union governing body have realised as long as our players are playing wherever and they're playing good quality first team regular rugby, we'll select them. They've won back-to-back World Cups. Doesn't take a genius to work out South Africa have worked out a winning formula. Let your players play wherever, at the top level, in whatever continent, whatever country, and then they can come back and represent the national side. Oh, guess what? We win World Cups. Australia are repeating the same mantra of paying rugby league players through the nose. New Zealand's run out of money. Wales has no money. England is paying the RFU chief executive lots of money to misspend money to make losses. Ireland, successful in the Six Nations, brilliant system for strong provinces. The funding is a mess. How they distribute the funds. Honestly, how they distribute the funds. It's like, I think it's either Leinster or Munster get favoured over the other three. And Ulster, Connacht, they're getting shafted. Yeah, like they're producing talent. And so you have to ask questions of, especially during COVID, and this is what really pisses me off, is all the rugby union governing bodies around the world, all the various unions, went to their domestic governments and went, give us money. You're a professional sport. You should have the money. It was the same with other sports as well. They went cap in hand going, we need money. So for the last 30 years, you have to ask the question with all these lovely TV deals, sponsorship deals, centralised contracts, big internet World Cup, making lots of money. Where's it all gone? And Augustin Pichot was proven right in 2019 when he said that the funding is a mess. The Tier 2 and Tier 3 nations and those developing leagues at professional and semi-pro level are not getting the funding they need from World Rugby. There's too much money tied up with too few. So the top-end talent's getting paid too much. I think he was hinting at the rugby league players coming over to Rugby Australia and some of the centralised contracts in Europe with the provinces and regions in the URC. Going, there's too much money tied up with too few, not properly distributed. He lost that election. Everything that he warned has come true. Don't get me started on the constant rule changes that World Rugby keep fiddling with as well, which help nothing. Because I'll ask this question to someone here. If you were an Australian who watched in 99 or a South African who watched in 95, although South African would continue to watch even now, but if you were young in the 90s, early 2000s watching the game, then you fell out of love with the game for whatever reason. You just stopped watching, you stopped playing after you left school, and you were to watch the game now, would you recognise it? Because I've watched constantly and I don't recognise it. It's a completely different sport. It has changed beyond recognition from when I started playing as a kid, when I was watching as a kid, to now. It has completely changed, and not necessarily for the better. So that's my views on the current state of rugby union. I know it was a bit of a long-winded rant, but I'm concerned about the finances. I'm concerned about the constant rule changes. That 20-minute red card, bin it. A red's a red, a yellow's a yellow. A penalty is a penalty, a free kick is a free kick. Give power back and the authority back to the on-field officials. Stop with the constant bureaucracy and refereeing by replay, because that is just what pisses fans off. Scrum and tackle technique need to be fixed. Just simple basics around the game. Those are simple basics around the game that help it flow better. Because constant changes of the laws at scrum time are a joke, because they're not fixing the core issue of feeding the ball straight, hookers hooking the ball, and the two packs pushing straight. That's all you really need. And the stronger pack will win the day, or the hooker that can hook the ball the quickest and get the ball to the scrum half's hand the quickest via the number 8 out the back. Gone. Reset play quickly. It's becoming reset after reset after reset. Collapse scrum, wheel scrum, penalty, free kick. Just get on with it. In, out, quick. Tackle technique. They need to get coaches and players around the table and tell them, you're doing it wrong, kids are copying this. They need to work out actually doing training properly, the contact training properly, rather than limiting minutes. Just get them doing it repetitive, properly, safely and controlled. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to work out tackle bags are important. Going through tackle drills are important because they build muscle memory and technique that will serve you well in the game. And then reactionary rule changes because they're fearful of a lawsuit. Well, unfortunately, depending on how it goes, it's going to cost money in the short term for long-term gain, where the proper protocols are in place that cannot be manipulated by coaches and medics and teams to keep players on the field that shouldn't be there. There you go, rant over. Thank you very much for watching. If you've got this far into the video, I really appreciate your patience. But from me for now, it is goodbye. Thank you very much for watching. Please leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Like and subscribe, obviously, is a thing, and memberships are available. So if you do feel like being a bit generous and giving £1.99 a month to be a member, it will help make this channel more self-sufficient, which will result in better content, because I do intend to turn my lovely studio apartment into a bit more of a YouTube set, and and I want the channel to be as self-sufficient, as healthy as possible, and continue to grow. So that is also appreciated. You don't have to, by the way. Just a simple sub will help with the algorithm. But for me for now, thank you very much for watching. I'll have some more content for you guys very, very soon.